You're listening to the Break Podcast powered by Career Cloud.
Hey everyone, welcome back. You're listening to the Break Podcast on Career Cloud Radio. I'm your host, Michael Gardon. I'm a student of how we as people can change. The Break is dedicated to that moment when we finally make a change and forge a new path with our career. In 2008, work wasn't working for me, so I literally broke it. I started a side hustle, which you're listening to now. And slowly, over a year, I engineered my way out of corporate life. I envisioned a work life where I could thrive by being me, be creative, and center everything around my top priority, my family. Now, each week, I deconstruct the art and science behind change with examples from my own experiences and by bringing you deep conversations with amazing people who decided to break their careers and design a better life. All right, my fourth guest of 2023 is Dan Go. Imagine for a second being a pudgy, bullied high school dropout going nowhere, then miraculously building a successful business, selling it, and then going on to coach thousands of high-performing executives and entrepreneurs on fitness and energy. How did he do it all? Dan's remarkable story starts with one simple decision, his break moment. He decided to get in shape, and little by little, Dan transformed the way he looked, but more importantly, he transformed how he thought of himself and what he was capable of. Dan is now the go-to fitness coach for high-achieving entrepreneurs. He spent the past 20 years coaching thousands of clients, helping them lose over 100,000 pounds while growing one of the most successful gyms in Toronto. In 2018, he left the gym world to help high-achieving entrepreneurs improve their health and build world-class bodies. He's a prolific writer. You can find him on Twitter. He is @FitFounder, where he has over 120,000 followers, or you can find him on LinkedIn as plain old Dan Go. This episode is packed with wisdom on getting in shape and transforming your psychology. I was particularly keen to ask Dan about the parallels between getting in shape and career performance. I've always considered myself in shape, but I failed to see how managing my physical energy was related to food. I also learned how much of a profound effect increasing my physical energy had on my overall output, focus, and performance in my career. In this episode, we tackle Dan's amazing career and his break moment, how to hack your energy to become more productive, how to take better, not bigger, risks with his 1 foot in safety, 1 foot in danger method. And we also get into a bunch of audience questions about the keys to habit change and getting your ass in shape. I've really enjoyed getting to know Dan recently, and I appreciate him taking the time to dive deep with me. I hope you all enjoy this one with the one and only Dan Go. This episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you need a change and are looking for a new job, or if you're looking to hire for your small business, please check out ZipRecruiter today. Their smart technology matches the right candidates to the right jobs and sends new opportunities right to your inbox. They make finding a job or hiring the right person easier than ever. ZipRecruiter, the smarter way to hire. Try ZipRecruiter for free today by going to ZipRecruiter.com and tell them I sent you. Dan, welcome to the show. How are you today?
I'm good. We were just talking a little bit before. Just got back from a workout, feeling pretty frisky right now, so ready to jump into it.
That's fantastic. I have a standing desk, and I was debating should I sit or stand, and I was like, I've got Dan Go on the podcast. I better stand up here.
Make me feel like I need to stand right now. I adjust my standing desk right now, but we'll see. Maybe later.
Well, as long as you're fired up, I'm happy. So I'm excited to talk to you about a wide range of topics. I'm going to start off a little easy. I've been getting to know you like over online and listening to a lot of or reading your writings and listening to your videos. But something that I didn't really know about you is, so you're from Canada. You live in Canada, basically, but you're an avid surfer.
Yes.
Talk to me a little bit about how you got into surfing and why.
So I've always been, I guess you could say, enamored with surfing. And living in Canada and living in Toronto, that's next to impossible. So I've always kind of like had this dream of surfing, and I didn't know exactly how I was going to do it. So one time, I think it was like I was 32 years old. I told myself, I was like, screw this. I'm going to figure this out, or I'm going to die trying. And I ended up going on a month-long trip over to Costa Rica. And during that trip, I told myself again, like, I'm going to learn how to surf, or they're going to have to like take me out of the ocean, unconscious kind of thing. So basically, I just went like twice a day, morning and the evening, and I got lessons. And by the end of like the third week, I actually have this thing where it's like, everyone's like, oh yeah, how do you like learn how to surf? How do you learn how to surf? I'm like, well, the first 2 weeks, get ready to have get ready to get mauled for the first 2 weeks. Get ready to feel like you don't know anything. Get ready to feel like this is not for you, and to get beat up basically for a good 2 weeks. And after those 2 weeks, things start to open up. So for me, after like the third week, I started to catch some waves. I think the second time I went down to Costa Rica, which was the year afterwards. So there's like two ways of like learning. The first level is to ride the whitewater, and the whitewater basically just pushes you ahead. You ride the whitewater. It's not really surfing, but it's like a beginner type of surfing. And then there's real surfing, which is to catch what we call like the green face of the wave. And I was talking to my wife about this, and we were actually talking about what was a bigger memory, or what was a more vivid memory, the day we got married or the first time you caught a green wave. And I was like, I can't answer you on that one because I don't want you to feel bad, but it was the wave for sure. It's the most in the moment thing that you can ever feel in your entire life. I've never felt anything like that. It is where you are completely zoned in on exactly what you're doing. And this is the reason why I say surfers have this, I guess you could say, aura and energy, like they've been smoking weed all day, but they haven't. It's really because they got so much of a dopamine rush from being in that zone all freaking day that they come out and they're like, yeah, man, that's so cool. And they have that kind of like shaggy type of energy to them. But yeah, man, ever since I learned in Costa Rica, I have been situating myself in every single trip that I take to go to like one surfing spot to another. And thankfully, my wife is pretty cool with that because she likes beaches as well. So it works out pretty well.
That's amazing. I mean, yeah, getting in the zone and feeling it, feeling the flow and the energy of it, it's something that's pretty cool. I've only done it once. It was cold in San Diego, but I caught the vibe. Like I understood that. And the way you described it, kind of getting mauled for 2 weeks and then sort of having an epiphany. It's a pretty good analogy for life and a lot of changes we go through. You got to fight through, which is the backdrop of our conversation today. Really, you fight through the hard stuff, and then you can kind of get to that when you get to that other side, a whole new world opens up.
Yeah. I don't think anyone gives themselves enough time, especially when they're starting out, whether it be starting out a business, whether it be starting to get in shape, whether it be learning how to surf. They don't give themselves the permission to suck and the permission to really go through the launching phase. And I liken it to like launching a rocket into space. So if there's anything that we know about launching a rocket into space, is where like 80% of your energy is expended to get the rocket into orbit. And that's the way I look at beginning anything that's worthwhile in our lives. We have to get ready to suck. We have to put the most energy in the beginning. And then once we do that, and once we're able to have this like beginner's mind, then we're able to kind of just like learn it in a way that it's going to be conducive to our own enjoyment.
I love it. So I am a student of change and of particular moments. And so I want to get into your backstory and kind of your evolution. It is the tweet that's pinned to the top of your Twitter feed, but I want everybody to understand this moment because this was a pivotal moment in your life where you changed everything, starting with your body. So here it is. At age 20, I was a high school dropout who was fat, 15K in debt, and headed nowhere. At age 40, I'm an entrepreneur in my best shape, zero debt, built a 7-figure gym business, sold it, and I'm just getting started. The catalyst, transforming my body. I want to understand who you were at that moment, and I want to understand how getting in shape can be such a key to unlocking all sorts of performance and really changing the trajectory of your life.
Yeah, I was talking with a fellow Twitter guy, this guy named Sahil Bloom, and we were going over my story and what transformed me. So when I was about anywhere, I would say within grade school and high school, I was basically the kid that my parents were most worried about. And they would literally tell me that. Not really a good thing to say to like a kid, in terms of like in terms of like their mentality and their mindset. I don't think it's a great thing, but thank God I'm here. And but they were so worried about me. I was bullied a lot when I was a kid as well, both physically and psychologically. I was being told over and over and over that I was stupid, that I wasn't worth anything. And that kind of stuck with me. I didn't try in high school. I didn't try in school at all because I kind of had this like mindset that I was worthless and I just, was stupid. And then pretty much like when it actually started with a immense amount of like dissatisfaction. So lo and behold, here I am in 20 and I've dropped out of high school. I'm really headed nowhere. I'm smoking cigarettes. I'm partying on the weekends, even during the weekdays with my friends, drinking alcohol, doing all this stuff. And then one of my friends from high school, he's like, "Hey, Dan, do you want to go to play ball with us?" And I love playing basketball. That was like my jam back in high school. So I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm gonna go out and I'm gonna play some basketball with you guys." First time during the court, I'm huffing and puffing, and I'm like, those like that the way a smoker breathes in their and they have that like esophagus thing, the thing in their esophagus, which like helps them breathe. Yeah, it's like I was breathing like that, going up and down the court. And I was like, okay, this really sucks. And then I remember it was like during a fast break, I was just like running as fast as I humanly could. And then I felt this like jiggle inside of my chest. And I was like, what exactly is that? And you know what? My first thought was, oh crap. Maybe I gotta go see like the doctor because this is kind of weird. It's like a lump or whatever it is. And then I go back home. I don't tell anybody anything. I go back home. I take off my shirt. And then I see one of the most, I'm going to call them the ugliest pair of like man boobs I've ever seen staring back at me in my mirror. And I was probably the most distraught at that moment of time because for me, it was like, I look like a woman, but I didn't intend for this to happen whatsoever. I was extremely embarrassed. I was extremely dissatisfied. It's at that point in time where I was like, I am going to do something about this. And I am going to make sure that I get myself in shape and never let myself feel this feeling ever again in the rest of my life. So I ended up starting with basketball. I gave up smoking because that wasn't going to help me play basketball whatsoever if it's an endurance sport. After I started playing basketball, I started to kind of like get the hang of like just being physical and being active again, having exercise back in my life. Then one thing happens, which I think completely changes my life, but it happened by accident. So I'm playing basketball, I'm living this active life a little bit. And then my dad he's been going to the gym for maybe like the past like 5 months. And then he's been going so much, the gym was like, "Hey, we see you. Here's a month-long pass to the gym. Here's your gift." Gives it to my dad. My dad gives it to my oldest brother. My oldest brother's like, "Nah, don't really want to use this." He gives it to me. And then my whole mentality at that point, because again, I dropped out of high school, not doing anything. I was like, okay, well, worst case scenario is I go in there and I see lots of hot women, and see lots of attractive women. Or best case scenario, maybe I get in shape. Who knows? So during my my free time, which I have a lot of, I went to the gym, started lifting weights horribly. I remember there was like this little table there that had the magazines with all the bodybuilders on it, Flex Wheeler, and all these like juiced up guys. And then I would just go in there and use their workouts that they were using, not knowing that they were actually enhanced in a sort of way. And then I end up doing the workouts and everything just horribly. About I'd say 1 to 2 weeks doing that, I go into the change room and I'm putting my belt on. And then for some reason, I was like, I went down about 2 notches in my belt. And I was like, wait, I didn't change how I was eating. I was working out horribly. But for some reason, like I've lost a little bit of like inches and weight and I'm starting to get leaner. And then after that, I was hooked. I would go to the gym like every single day because the result itself, I was like, it got me excited. And then as I was going to the gym, I believe that one thing always leads to another. I don't necessarily always believe in big overhauls, although in some cases those are warranted. But in my case, I kind of just like let one positive action turn into another positive action. So lo and behold, I'm working out, I'm exercising, and then I decide to fix up my diet, to trade soda for drinking water, and all these little changes. And then little did I know, during that entire time, I was actually changing my brain chemistry. I was changing the way in which I perceived myself. I was changing my confidence levels. And it was all because I started off by controlling the one thing I had control over, which was my body and the choices I was making with my body. So I have this thing where I believe self-mastery, a lot of people try to seek it through like external sources. Okay, I'm going to master this. I'm going to master. Well, the thing is that in order to achieve self-mastery, it is about doubling down on the things that we actually have supreme control over, which is the way in which we move our bodies, and also the foods that we put in our mouth and the times that we go to sleep. So for me, that was a precursor to every single area of my success, because I was literally focusing on what I had control over, which was my health and my body.
Such an amazing story. When I talk about career change or doing anything different, work related, I talk about the belief flywheel. And it's a really similar concept to what you're saying. It's like, you don't need to take massive action. You need to figure out one thing that's going to give you a tiny bit more confidence in yourself. And you seem to have, and then that just starts this flywheel process, which you just outlined massively. And you found the foundation was really physical for you. So, it's such a powerful story. And the next logical sort of place we should take this is into career. So, you're 20 and you're a high school dropout and you're getting yourself fit. Well, like, what were you doing were you working at the time? What were you doing career-wise at that moment?
I was bouncing from one job to another. This is actually the first time I'm talking about this, which is like I was selling blinds at one point. Then I got fired because I was coming into work late. And then I fell back and I was working in my parents' printing shop, literally folding like thousands of papers together. This is before like the advent of like technology. I would have to physically staple these papers, do 5,000 fold and staple. It was like manual labor. Afterwards, I got sick of that. So I just basically bounced around from one job to another. And then when I was about like 21, 22, I would say around 21, 22, my friend said, hey, I'm at this job. They're doing collections. They're paying $15 an hour. And to me, at that time, I was like, whoa, that's a lot of money, dude. Like, I was like, okay, let's go. And then I got that job. And it was actually just like doing collections for, I'm not going to say what the company is, just in case, because they're a pretty prominent company. And after about a couple of years doing that, I ended up moving up, I guess you could say. But in this case, this was actually the precursor to what I would call my golden handcuff situation. So I ended up moving on up, and I was selling loans to people through the phone, essentially. And I was pretty darn good at it. Now, here's the rub, though. The rub is that I was selling 25, 30% loans to people who didn't even need them. And then once I realized this and I kept on doing it and I was making money off of it, I was coming back home and I was like, I can't even talk about what I do. This is horrible and I feel horrible about myself, but I'm making so much money because of it. Oh my God. So there came a breaking point when something actually happened that caused me to make the jump. And it wasn't necessarily because I felt so horrible about it or whatever. It actually happened because during that time, my mom had actually passed away very suddenly. It was about a 6-month ordeal. It came out of nowhere. And after she passed away, what happened with me was I was looking at that situation and I was like, yo, like life can get taken away from you like that. Life is fickle. And what if I like died tomorrow? Would I look back at what I did and be like, okay, I was so happy selling these 30% loans to people that didn't need them? So it was at that moment in time and I was just like, it was a breaking point for me. And I was just like, well, if I look forward 10 years down the road, what would I want to be doing? I want to help people. I want to do something I'm passionate about. And during that whole time, I was working out and really into fitness. I could actually read about fitness all day and not get bored. So I ended up making the big decision and saying, and actually starting over at 24 years old. And mind you, I know like for a lot of people are like, oh, 24 years old, you're still young, whatever. At that moment in time, all my friends like had 9-to-5s, they had jobs. I was like, I'm starting over again at 24. My gosh. But I had to do it. And I ended up giving up that job, going into a job which was being a personal trainer. And when I started to become a personal trainer, I was like, this is what I was born for. I love this. I can live in the gym. I can help people. I can help people get in shape and get paid for it. Like that to me is like the holy grail. It's what the Japanese people call like ikigai, right? It's like where you enjoy what you're doing. You can probably fill in the blanks right here, but you're getting paid for it. And yeah, it's like something that you actually enjoy learning. So I found my ikigai, so to speak, at like 24 or 25 years old. And since then, I haven't looked back.
An amazing story. I promise we didn't pay Dan to say his breaking point. The title of the show is The Break, and it's all about that moment
Boom.
where something catalyzes and you decide that you have to go in a different direction. And you've had several of those already in our conversation, physically and passion and connection. And I've had that. You know, I turned 40 a couple of years ago, and with 3 kids, and you know, it's that cliche sort of midlife crisis, but it's like, what am I doing here? Right? I think that one of the quote from Confucius is, every man has 2 lives and the second begins when he realizes he only has one. And that was my moment, or one of them, where I was like, I have to do something, you know, I have to be on a different path that means something to me. So I really identify with that. That's amazing.
Yeah. I feel like every single time a child gets born, that makes you really reevaluate your life and what you're doing. I have a second child that's coming along right now, and it's making me reevaluate what I'm doing and kind of like recalibrating a little bit. So yeah, I get that for a very large degree.
You're listening to the Break Podcast, powered by Career Cloud.
This episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you need a change and are looking for a new job, or if you're looking to hire for your small business, please check out ZipRecruiter today. Their smart technology matches the right candidates to the right jobs and sends new opportunities right to your inbox. They make finding a job or hiring the right person easier than ever. ZipRecruiter, the smarter way to hire. Try ZipRecruiter for free today by going to ZipRecruiter.com and tell them I sent you. To continue on your hero's journey here, personal training, you found your passion and your flame. You were born to do this. How did you muster the courage to go out on your own and start your own gym?
Yeah. Okay, so I have this thing where it's like you get to a level where you feel like you have learned everything that you could learn at that very moment with anything that you do, right? And it takes a lot of courage to go on and to actually give up the comfort and to go on and move on to the next level. So when I was a trainer, in 2 years, I became the best trainer there. And I was just like, okay, well, this is awesome. What's the next level? What's the next step? And the next step for me was going off on my own and doing my own thing. And then once I started to go off on my own, doing my own thing, it was really just like figuring out what exactly did I want to do. I didn't want to own a gym or a gym in a traditional sense where you go in and people pay their membership and they just, you have a bunch of like machines or whatever it is. I didn't really want to do that. I didn't really want to do like one-on-one training or like home training, because when I did that, I was like, it was great, but it was so like monotonous and boring. And then I was just like, and then I got into group training and I loved it. I thought group training was kind of like the new jam, So I ended up going off on my own, doing one-on-one training, trying a bunch of stuff. And then I started my first boot camp. And that was kind of like the catalyst again to owning a gym that people went to and that just did nothing but like boot camp classes. And I grew that. I went from like doing it in the parks to this 1,000 square foot space where we like packed 50 people in there all at once doing a workout. And then we moved on to a space where we were doing it in a 5,500 square foot space. And again, we had many people in that. We stuffed that gym. And then it got to a point where I just felt I learned everything I needed to learn from the gym business. And at that point, I was just like, well, what's the next step? The next step for me was to go online. For me, it was actually to go online. And for me, it was to figure out what it takes to actually start an online business. And the reason I say that is because I feel like there's like different types of freedoms out there. There's financial freedom, there's time freedom, there's location freedom. And then you can go into like the esoteric stuff like mental freedom, physical freedom. And for me, one of the things that was on my mind the entire time was location freedom. I want to be able to work from anywhere and also get paid doing what I do best. So in 2018, I decided, actually it was like the backstory of that was like, I decided to like sell my gym, but it was like a harrowing journey just trying to sell that gym. There was many times that we weren't going to do it. And actually I gave myself like this ultimatum. If I don't sell this gym by, I think it was like 2018, I'm just going to give it up once the lease goes in 2019. I'm just going to start fresh and just give it up, not even renew the lease. So I ended up selling it, thankfully. And in 2018, ended up starting doing what I'm kind of doing like right now, which is helping high achieving entrepreneurs get into their best shape. Now we're, again, like new babies coming out. And I'm just like, okay, so what's the evolution from this? We have, we're coaching people privately right now. And what exactly do I want to do? I want to help a little bit more expansively. I want to make myself accessible to people that can't necessarily do the private coaching. So the next step that we're taking, or the next step I'm taking, is to figure out how to create courses and create things that are a little bit more accessible to people that can't necessarily work with us. So yeah, that's kind of like the, I guess you could say, the TLDR of why I am and where I am right now.
It's a great story. What it highlights for me here, just listening to you, is life's not one roll of the dice. I think what a lot of us are seeking as humans is growth and challenge and that process. And that is the reward and the outcome. And so to hear stories from people like yourself who have continuously challenged, what am I going to do next and why, is really interesting. I always think about Netflix, and I think about, how they basically they had this great DVD business going. They had disrupted Blockbuster. And then all of a sudden one day they announce, we're shutting down the DVD game and we're going streaming. And everybody was like, Dad, what are you doing? You're, torpedoing your business. And wow, were they, they had that nailed and figured out. And I think that's the magic elixir, is when you're continuing to chase, you're grounded in your priorities, but you're continuing to chase that personal growth. And I mean, your story just highlights that so well.
Yeah. And you got to have the courage to let go of what you know and what is comfortable. And it's so alluring, the idea of just doing what works. And there is like, and I think that every single person feels this, where there's this like little voice inside of their minds, inside of their hearts, that says to them, is like, well, there's something else that you probably want to do right now. And it just tugs at you. And then a lot of people push that down because like I'm getting paid though, I'm making money and whatever it is. But I mean, I liken it to like a creator or like an artist. And the creator and the artist is continually innovating and continually evolving, at least the successful ones. And if you have an artist or if you have a creator who just keeps on pumping out what they feel the crowd wants, then that artist is pretty much like headed towards a path going nowhere. But if you have an artist who continually has the courage to evolve himself and to listen to that little voice inside of his or inside of her heart and their body, then it is scary. Not gonna lie, it's like super scary. But usually those are like the big jumps and the big steps that you need to take. It's like into the void, into the nowhere of you don't even know what the heck is gonna happen, into the uncertain. But that is like where you're going to see the next level of success, the next step up.
I talk all the time about dealing with uncertainty. My background is in finance and derivatives trading, and I think you're completely right. Like, growth only happens when you step forward into the unknown, and the future is completely unknowable as it is. So every decision that you make and everything that you do has an element of uncertainty in it because there are some trade-offs. There are some things that you just can't know. And so getting people from a mental capacity to understand that and sort of look at risk in an objective way is something I'm trying to figure out how to teach, because I think it's foundational and super important. You think about, like, I've been reading a lot about the hero's journey and Joseph Campbell and the diagram of the hero's journey. I'm going to do some writing on this. Is literally a circle, and on the top it's the known, and underneath where everything happens is the unknown. And I just think that's so amazing as a visual to think about how we are all going on our own hero's journey to be the hero of our own story, and that requires us, stepping into the unknown and becoming experimental and not using our logical brain to try to solve every problem. Yeah,
there's this, I guess you could say there's like this little metaphor of the golden handcuffs. Yeah. And it's true, because the more you get rewarded for something that deep down inside is something that you don't necessarily want to do or actually fulfills you, the more you actually become tied to that thing. If you don't make that decision, then the void, or actually the tie to the golden handcuffs, just gets stronger and stronger and stronger, until the point where you have just buried the voice that's inside of you that says that you should have done this or you should be doing this instead. So I always try to make space for that voice as much as possible. I always try to trust my gut, trust my intuition, trust where it's taking me. I'm still a work in progress, still trying to, still trying to trust it. But it is like very scary, because you're giving up something that is giving you benefit for something that, again, is not guaranteed. So, I don't blame anyone for staying in a comfortable path whatsoever. I don't. But again, if we want to seek greatness and fulfillment, I mean, sometimes it's just like, you gotta go into the void, gotta go into the nowhere, and just like figure it out, and just trust that you're going to figure it out.
Yeah, love it. One of my favorite quotes is, I think I sent this to you not that long ago, is from Nassim Taleb, who's the author of The Black Swan and some finance books and stuff. But he says the three most harmful addictions in the world are heroin, carbohydrates, and a steady paycheck. And the steady paycheck part is is that golden handcuffs thing.
Yeah.
Right. It's the IV of money or safety, I guess, which is interesting.
Yeah. Sorry to interrupt, but
go ahead.
There's this thing that David Goggins, I was listening to this song actually. So Akira the Don is someone I listen to on a regular basis while I work out, because I don't want to work out to rap music or anything like that, even though I love it. But Akira the Don, he basically puts the best modern speeches, either from podcasts or wherever, and he puts it to like some pretty sick beats.
Oh wow!
And I listened to that. So David Goggins in this song, he's saying that when I get to when I put myself in front of God, and when it's all said and done, God's going to have this thing where he's like saying to you, well, you should have, this is what we planned for you. We're going to do this, and that, and that, and that. And then David Goggins says, like, I want to get up there. And again, like, depending on if anyone's like religious or whatever, like, I'm just using this as a metaphor. He's like, I want to get up there and I want to obliterate everything that they had planned for me. And I want to go past that. Right. And I listened to that. I'm like, gosh darn it, he's right. Some people out there are still like, no offense to anyone selling insurance, but they're still like selling insurance because that was the path, that was the comfortable path for them, kind of thing. When there was maybe something bigger that was like planned for them, if only they actually trusted themselves.
That's amazing. I got one more question related to your journey and what people can glean from it. And then I want to get into some habit stuff and energy and a couple things that are just burning questions, really for me, selfishly, but I think that our audience can really learn from. So as you've made these changes over your career, like particularly from gym to online coaching, a lot of our audience is sitting there thinking, yeah, maybe there is something for me to do. Like, what can people take away from your situation, like in terms of how you managed that transition or those changes? Because what we just talked about a lot was, having sort of a bold vision, but also managing that risk and that change and taking those baby steps and getting the momentum going. Like, what's a takeaway from how you sort of managed, one of those changes?
I feel like I followed the system for every single change that I was making. And the system goes like this, which is to say that don't give up completely the thing that you're doing. I don't think that's a smart idea, although I did that when I made the jump from corporate, being a corporate guy, to doing personal training. But I needed to make that jump. Like, it was a big time one. But when I went from personal training to owning my own business, I still had personal training clients that I was working with, and I was moonlighting and working a little bit, extra to take on more clients outside of that personal training gym. When I was going from one-on-one training to doing the actual bootcamp stuff, still had one-on-one training clients, and I was doing the bootcamp stuff. And then when I was doing the bootcamp stuff, and I've owned my gym and I, systemized it and all that kind of stuff, even before I sold the gym, I started to test out what online coaching and online training was, and I started to take on clients that way. And even during the time of, the reason you know me is because I'm on LinkedIn, I'm on like Twitter, all this kind of stuff. But the reason I did that is I was doing my online training. It was going pretty well. And then I was like, okay, well, why don't I start a social media audience on top of what I'm doing right now for the online coaching? And then now I'm doing this with courses. So I always like to have one foot in comfort and one foot in danger, right? I want to make sure that I'm not putting my family in a position where we're going to have to like really struggle. And I'm not putting them in a position where we're taking on a massive amount of risk. For me, it's just like, I'm going to work a little bit harder I'm going to work, I'm going to take on a little bit more load so I can make this transition. Once that is, I guess you could say, automatic, where I feel confident in it, then I feel I can make a jump. And then I have this kind of like concept, especially when it comes to like income as well, right? So if you are doing, let's just say, like a comfortable job or whatever it is, and you want to do something else, then you have milestones. Number one is like make your first dollar doing whatever that is. Number two is to actually make half of what you're making with that particular side hustle. Number three is like to match the income that you have with your main business or whatever it is. So I have these like milestones, and then once I hit like a certain milestone, I'm like, this gives me enough confidence to say that I can let this go and I can do something else. So 1 foot in comfort, 1 foot in danger. You're going to have to work a little bit harder. That's okay. But again, like you don't have to give up everything, but you do have to start. So that's probably the biggest thing, is getting yourself started and actually doing it.
I love it. Ladies and gentlemen, you just heard Risk Management 101. This is the exact path and process that I followed getting out of my corporate job. Yes, you do have to hustle it. You do have to do more than one thing at a time. And it's about your mentality of resilience over optimization. And so I couldn't agree with that enough. It's amazing.
Yeah.
That is the path.
Yeah.
All right. I'm gonna switch up our cadence just a little bit. Try to get some. We went pretty deep there, and we're jamming out. So I'm gonna get some rapid fire questions in here real quick to just switch it up, and then I'm gonna get into some energy and some habit stuff. All right. So is there a recent author, thought leader, or influencer that you've come across that has really caught your attention?
Man, it's going to be Robert Greene for me.
Okay.
Robert Greene, but
the author.
Yeah, the author.
Yep.
But he's always kind of like, he's been a staple. I'm actually a huge fan of his book, The Laws of Human Nature. I feel like everyone should I feel like everyone should read that book, because it basically teaches you the nature of us and how to deal with yourself and us all at the same time. Let me see if there's actually... Yeah, so many authors, man. Oh man, yeah, that's a hard one. Yeah, but yeah, I could say like I'm reading Stephen Pressfield's Gates of Fire. Oh my God, such an incredible book. So
is that the one about the? Is that the one about the 300?
Yeah.
Yes,
yeah.
I've read that. That's amazing. So that was my next question. What book are you reading right now that's really influenced you? So I've read that as well. It's a really good one.
Yeah. I'm in kind of like this mode where I'm like, I'm trying to like balance out the nonfiction and the fiction, because one allows me to think logically, the other allows me to think abstractly.
Yes.
Yeah.
Excellent. And there's a lot of negativity in the world right now, a lot of downers, there's layoffs in tech. So what is getting you excited about the next 12 months? I want to bring some levity to people.
Man, the world is awesome. If we really think about what is happening and we contrast it to maybe even like 20 years ago, I mean, yes, I mean, there are upswings, there are downturns. Quite frankly, like, you know, maybe we are going to be in a recession, or we are in a recession, but this is just a natural kind of like rhythm of life and also finance. So it's something that I've accepted. It's totally cool. Also, I have to realize that the world is awesome. The level of comfort that we have in our lives at this very moment, if you go to someone that was in the 1900s and you tell them that you can basically learn about anything at the snap of a finger. You can call your mom who's in say, you know, China, FaceTime her and have a conversation with her. You basically have the comforts of life. Food, sleep, shelter, all this kind of stuff. Like, those are all taken care of for us. If we really do the kind of like contrasting work and just are able to see exactly like what is available to us and what opportunities are available to us, even with like AI, I'm excited about what the next 12 months are going to be like, right? I'm excited. I think for myself, it's always like, it's so easy on social media because you actually get exposed to the extremes. Maybe not on LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn because they keep it positive. They keep it actually pretty positive down there. But like Twitter, even YouTube, like Instagram to a certain extent, you are seeing the extremes of opinion on those channels. And then you have like people maybe like us who are living pretty normal lives, right? And who are actually like, you go home, you play with your kids, you spend time with your family, and you read all this stuff on social media. You're like, whoa, the world's horrible. But no, it's not. I mean, you are seeing the extremes of everyone's opinions. And then that's what gets pointed out on social media. So you have to like temper yourself away from that, taking breaks from social media, but also coming at it from like a very just like neutral perspective. And this is hard this is something where, I'm saying it. I'm on social media and producing and creating for it every single day. So I have to have this like neutral aspect and this neutral eye towards everything that I see. And almost like it just like, you almost have to understand that, again, like we are living in the best of times and the times are just getting better right now. So yeah, that's enough to get excited for like the next 12 months.
Awesome. So I'm going to pivot a little bit to, like, as I said, energy, habits, and then I want to close with some audience questions. So for folks that are listening or watching on YouTube, I'm part of Dan's program. I've been doing his program for the last couple of weeks, and something that was just mind blowing to me. Mind blowing in the fact that I couldn't figure this out. Like, I've been fairly in shape my whole life. No problems with exercise, right? Very disciplined with being able to exercise. And I could always eat whatever I wanted because I could burn it off. I'm one of those people. But I've also, like, over the course of my life, battled low energy, anxiety, and I had cyclical bouts of depression, which I've never really talked about that very much at all. But I'm just amazed that I was never able to put together in my brain how much exercise and diet affects our energy levels until I joined your program. I mean, like, and what I've found in the last couple of weeks is, my energy is so great that it's the ultimate productivity hack, basically. Why is diet and exercise so profoundly important to increasing our energy levels?
It has everything to do with the brain, man. It's like, exercise is probably still the most underrated habit that anyone can have in their life. And people ask me, if I were to focus on diet or exercise first, which one would you focus on? I'd be like, exercise, 100%. And the reason I would choose exercise is because of the effect it has on your brain. One of the things it does is it actually increases blood flow to your brain. So you actually feel more awake. You actually feel like, your brain is actually working better. It stimulates more BDNF, which is brain-derived neurotropic factor, which is like fertilizer for your brain, which enhances your cognitive abilities and also your memory. And just in general, it's like we were meant to move our bodies. If we don't move our bodies, we are not going to feel as human as we should. So to put this into perspective, on average, our hunter-gatherer ancestors, for thousands of years, they moved about 16,000 to 17,000 steps a day, as opposed to us who are sitting down. Well, you're standing at your desk right now. I'm actually sitting. But on average, people in the West, they take 4,000 steps a day. And what do you think that's going to do, not only to the body, but also to the brain, right? It is going to affect you in a negative way because humans were meant to be in pure movement. So number one, that's why exercise works. Number two, we're actually starting to see the link between mental health and the foods that you put into your body. The amount of nutrients that are in those foods have a direct effect on how you think, on your levels of depression and anxiety. And we're not even talking about alcohol yet. We're going to get to that in like a second. But the more nutrients that are, my things is like single ingredient, nutrient dense foods. People are like, what is that? Single ingredient means it only has one ingredient. Broccoli is only broccoli. Chicken is only chicken. Bread has flour and a whole bunch of other stuff. That's not a single ingredient, right? So nutrient dense means it has a load of nutrients in it. Steak has a load of nutrients in it. Salmon has a load of nutrients in it. Broccoli, berries, things of that nature. The more nutrients that we actually put into our bodies, the better our mental health and our energy is going to be. And then we'll get into kind of like alcohol. So I've been talking about this a lot on social media, which is the sense that I feel like adults themselves, especially those in the West and those in Europe, actually in almost every single country, they have this perception that alcohol is actually healthy for us. That drinking like maybe once or twice a week or whatever, that's actually healthy. That contributes to like longevity. But the evidence is actually pointing towards the opposite. Now, when they say like, oh yeah, well, Italians live the longest, and they drink wine with their friends and whatever. Well, that is because of the community aspect. That is because they're doing it with their friends. So I'm going to throw in there like probably not drinking alcohol has been the biggest change for myself, productivity wise, energy wise, sleep wise, and I like to say this like when your sleep starts to become a lot better, it has this like lead domino effect where your sleep gets better, you have less anxiety, you have more energy, that leads to more productivity, and that just leads to you feeling like a fully functioning human being. And combined with the diet, combined with the exercise, basically you are living at your fullest potential. So yeah, I mean, I'm stoked because we talked a little bit about this before. You're feeling more energy than ever before, more productivity, more focus, and that is going to directly affect your whatever you do for your business. It is going to directly affect that. I'm not going to be, and I'm actually going to sit here and going to be like, hey, guess what? Like that is going to be a key contributor to kind of like, I guess you could say, the success of your business. I've seen so many founders, even myself, who have just gotten their bodies into shape and have had a kind of trickle down effect towards a business because they're just more focused and more energetic. So that is the reason why.
Yeah, what I'm fascinated by is like I totally got it with exercise, right? Like the most productive periods of my life have been coinciding with periods of intense exercise. When I was doing Ironman, when I've done marathons, things like that. But I was never able to make the mental leap with food for some reason. And I don't know, I can't pinpoint it, but I'm developing, because I do deal with anxiety and I do deal with bouts of depression. I'm kind of building what I call my unfuck myself toolkit. Yeah. And exercise has always been in there. But what I've learned from you over the last, month or so is I got to have a food plan. If I get off and I start to have an issue, like I got to have a food plan because it's been so profound. I'm really like blown away, and I'm usually not blown away by a lot of the stuff. I have a pretty open mind, but I was like, for whatever reason, it makes so much sense to me.
Yeah, 100%.
So, kind of in going forward with that, I mean, it affects productivity, all of your relationships, business. It can be such an accelerator that is so worth investing in. Building these habits, right? What I love about your writing, and I'm curious as to kind of like how you maybe found the knack for writing. But what's so interesting to me about habits is we have to be able to follow very simple advice, and we have to be able to follow a plan that we can adhere to. And that's what I love about your writing, because it's so simple. It's so basic. You have these basic heuristics. You're not dogmatic in terms of you can never do these things. You can never do that. It's moderation. Talk to us a little bit about what you've learned as a coach about habit formation and sticking with habits.
With habits, I love the lowest hanging fruit. I love the simple, and I love the what can we actually do that is not going to be complicated,
right?
And that is not going to overhaul what you're already doing. So if you read a lot of the stuff that I talk about on social media, Like, I don't press on you need to have a 6-pack, you need to be in the gym 6 days a week, and you need to be like eating chicken and broccoli. Like, that is like bodybuilder talk. That is like if I'm talking to Jay Cutler or like Arnold Schwarzenegger, and I'm trying to get them ready for like the Olympia. And that's kind of like one of the reasons I actually wanted to get on social media is because I saw all of these like quote unquote bros just talking this nonsense as if like people don't have jobs, don't have fitness as the primary focus in their lives. They don't have families, and they're talking to them as if like fitness is the only thing that they do. Me, I understand holistically that, guess what? I have a family. I've been actually working with clients, like hundreds of clients who basically are working like 12, 14-hour days, have to go home, be with their families too, do it all over again, work at night again, then go off and then do it all over again in the morning. Like, fitness has to be accessible to them. That's my thing. So when it comes to habits, I always say that, hey, let's like make things as easy as possible. Don't seek the hard stuff. Actually, go easy, then evolve from there. Because like I always say that positive action starts off a chain reaction towards more positive action. And being the high achievers that we are, we're going to want to actually evolve these positive actions. We're gonna, let's just say like, we're exercising, or for I tell one client to be like, okay, well, do exercise that's enjoyable to you. Okay, playing basketball is enjoyable? Cool. All right, play basketball. Actually, I'll use an example from one of the clients that we worked with. He had actually problems tracking his food. So we were just like, okay, don't track your food. Send your meals over to John. And every single, like, John's our coach actually. So send your meals to John. Every single time you eat them, we'll help you adjust. And then he started sending his meals to John. And then lo and behold, like a week afterwards, he's like, you know what? I started tracking, and I just wanted to start tracking. So I'm tracking now. Right. So it's like all these positive actions. If we simplify things to their basics, what we can do is we can build from there, rather than starting you off at hard level. We're starting you off at easy level, build up your skill, get you to intermediate, build up your skill, then get you over to the hard, then build up your skill. I look at it like a video game in that sense, where eventually over time, the game is going to get so easy to you, you're going to want to like level up anyways.
Yeah, that's fantastic. And for our audience, I mean, let's try to extrapolate that to any change, right? Like if you're contemplating a career change or a skill change or anything, right? We're sitting here on February 3rd, we just had the new year, and everybody tries to start 10 different things at the new year, right? Like, give yourself the runway and the time to build something meaningful. And because the only plan that you can follow is one that, or the only good plan is one that you can follow. Yeah. So you need to make it easy. And you need to adjust, and you need to put slack in there so you can make it yours, right? Not every program is going to work for everybody. You got to be able to make it yours and put your own spin on it, and just give yourself that grace. Like, you're going to fail at times. You're not going to be perfect on this thing, but you got to keep with it. You got to stick with it. And so I really get a lot out of that in your writing, that the ease, the simplicity, not putting pressure on people to be some perfect version, but just continuing on the path is what I really love in the takeaway there.
Yeah, like, let's just say that we're going to do this for the rest of our lives, right?
Right.
If you gave yourself that runway, what would happen? Like, what actions would you take, as opposed to thinking that you have to get in shape in the span of like 6 weeks and do like a 6-week challenge or whatever it is? Like, how much more pressure would you feel if you're trying to get in shape in 6 weeks, as opposed to like if you gave yourself like a year or two to actually do that, right?
Yeah.
And what we're after is not like this short-term outcome. We're after lifestyle change. And lifestyle change takes time, and that's okay.
All right. We only got a few more minutes left, and I got a bunch of questions from our audience. Hopefully we can kind of tick some of these off in rapid fire here. So I got a lot of questions about kind of attributes of most successful clients. And so you can take this question however you want, make it very general, but Joe from our program actually asked about what are the common attributes of your most successful clients?
You're listening to the Break Podcast powered by Career Cloud.
This episode is sponsored by ZipRecruiter. If you need a change and are looking for a new job, or if you're looking to hire for your small business, please check out ZipRecruiter today. Their smart technology matches the right candidates to the right jobs and sends new opportunities right to your inbox. They make finding a job or hiring the right person easier than ever. ZipRecruiter, the smarter way to hire. Try ZipRecruiter for free today by going to ZipRecruiter.com and tell them I sent you.
Common attributes of our most successful clients is number one, they're coachable, and number two, they're responsive. And we don't promote the idea of like, okay, we give you this plan and, figure it out. All right. Make your life, work around it. Our thing is like, we're going to give you a plan. We think it works. But if it doesn't, and there are certain parts that don't work, why don't we work together? And why don't we do this? And why don't we kind of adjust it towards what works for you? So our clients or our most successful clients are just like open to being coached. They're very open to just responding because guess what? Like a lot of times people just want this part of their lives to be on automatic. But the reality is that just like the rocket launching metaphor that we used before, you have to get through like the levels of learning before you get there. So there's like unconscious incompetence where it's like you don't even know that you have a problem, so you're ignorant. There's unconscious or conscious incompetence, which is a sense that, okay, I know I have a problem, I just don't know how to figure it out. Where most of our clients are at is at conscious competence, where they have to consciously do the work to get to the next level, which is unconscious competence, which is the sense of, I do this automatically. It's like brushing my teeth and I can't not do this anymore. So I'd say responsiveness, coachability, those are like the top two.
Attributes of coachability, I'm assuming like very open-minded, open to feedback, willing to implement, realize that they don't need to know everything, not perfectionist, type attitude, growth mindset. Those
ask a lot of questions, I would say. Get involved, right? Get involved in the process. Ask a lot of questions. Even when things don't make sense, point them out. Oh, this doesn't make sense. Like, what does this mean? But you want me to do this and you're actually wanting me to do this too? How does that work out? Have an explanation and then get really in tune with like why we're getting you to do what you're doing by getting involved, asking questions, participating in the process.
Cool. Emo from the group asks, is it necessary to hit rock bottom in order to spark a change?
For some people and a lot of people, yes. Unfortunately, yes. But is it necessary for everybody? No. There are people who are proactive and there are people who are reactive, and then it changes depending on what part of their life that we're actually talking about. So if we're talking about like an investor and someone who is really good at investing, they'll probably be very proactive about the investments that they're making rather than reactive to what the market is telling them. But when it comes to their health, they could be reactive. Oh, the doctor says I have to be on blood pressure meds. If I change like my lifestyle and do a couple things, okay, well, I can change that. So it really depends on the person. For me, unfortunately, for the very first part of my life, I needed to hit rock bottom to really like put it in line and actually do something about it. The more that you can consolidate that time between possibly hitting rock bottom and not, and doing something about it, then I'm going to say that you are fixing problems before they happen. And that's a mark of a high performer right there.
Any tricks to sort of spot that before you hit rock bottom? That was kind of a follow-up question in here, actually. I know it's really hard, but anything?
Have the courage to see the reality of everything. So I'll use a client as an example. So we have this client, and won't mention any names, but on the when things are going really good, you see like them weighing over and over and over. They're like, you see the weigh-ins come in, everything's great. lo and behold, like when something goes wrong or they eat a meal that they didn't end up wanting to eat, what happens? They don't step on the scale. They don't see the reality of whatever happened, right? They avoid that. And then you do that over the course of time, enough times, then you're basically just going to avoid it long enough where you're not even going to step on it whatsoever. So I actually like to say that, hey, for a good business or for a good financial portfolio, guess what you're doing? You're looking at your numbers. You're seeing where the red areas are. You're being objective about your results. You're not being emotional or reactive, or you're trying not to be, because you know that if you make an emotional decision, it's not necessarily going to be good for you. The same thing goes with your body. Like, track your numbers, know what your blood work is, know what your regular weight is. And then if you see any of this stuff kind of like pop up and kind of give you numbers that you're not necessarily used to, or that you should be tracking, or whatever it is, then that is a little bit of a sign that maybe you should pull back. Maybe you should get back to like what you were doing before, right? So have the courage to see the reality of where you are at. That's probably the best way to avoid rock bottom. And yeah, like for a lot of people, that means getting clear on how much they weigh, what their inches are on a very basic level, even pictures. And on a deeper level, get your blood work done every 6 months from your doctor. Get that checked up. And yeah, that's just any guy that's above 40 like us. You know, we got to do that on a regular basis just to make sure that we're on the up and up, both on the inside and outside.
Okay, just got a couple more. If you can hang with me,
I can hang.
All right, cool. Nikki from Twitter asks, she's asking about routine disruption and getting in a groove. Finding a new routine has been a constant challenge for her, especially when starting a new one. Love to understand what is happening in our brains when we're trying to establish new routines. Yeah,
so I look at this as like, let's just say we're traveling and I'm going from Toronto and I'm going to Costa Rica. What my brain is trying to do is trying to acclimate itself to the rhythms of the new country, the new routine, and what we're going to be doing there. And that takes energy and that takes time. And that also causes stress and anxiety. So to deal with the stress and anxiety, number one, we have to be cognizant and aware of it, because it is going to come. It's going to be there. And one of the things I like to do is, I told you guys about this on the last mastermind call, which is like to actually log when these things are happening, when these emotions are being felt, and to actually have the presence in mind to feel these emotions, to allow yourself to feel them instead of doing what most people do, which is push them down. And then once you log them, you get objective about them. They don't trigger you as much. Then once you kind of get through the transition period, allow yourself to just like get back into the little routines that make you feel normal. So for me, that's a couple of things. Like one of them is like wearing blue light blockers at like 6 p.m., 7 p.m., right? That's something I do regardless of whatever country I'm in. I just acclimate myself to the new time zone based on like wearing these blue light blockers. I also like to ground my feet at certain times of the day as well. Morning, or actually sun exposure in the time zone that you're in is a great way to retrain yourself to the time zone that you're trying to acclimate yourself to. And just in general, like we talked about this before, just give yourself grace, give yourself some adaptation periods. I just came back from Costa Rica probably a week or a little bit more than a week ago. And when I first like got into like my task, the next day I got back, I was like, man, this is like so hard. And then I reminded myself, is like, that's okay. Give yourself the time to get yourself into rhythm and order, and you don't have to fix the world. And like the next day you get back from this trip, give yourself a couple of days just to like acclimate yourself and have that grace. And then now here I am, and I'm just like, oh, I just can't stop, working now. So yeah.
Great. My friend Brian on LinkedIn asks what your favorite Vice food is.
Fried chicken. Popeye's fried chicken.
Popeyes specifically.
Popeye's fried chicken. The skin, the way they cook the freaking chicken. So, and then that's like every single time that I go to like a family gathering, I'm like, I hope someone brings like Popeye's chicken. Just like, please, like someone bring Popeye's chicken there.
Excellent. What's a top lesson that fitness has taught you that's transferable to other areas of your life? That was also from Brian.
The biggest one is like control what you can control. Yeah. Control what you can control and trust the process. Focus on the process. A lot of times we can get bogged, especially like if we're, let's just say like in your case, like you're cutting right now, you're getting your weight down. It can get so easy to get bogged down on the day-to-day scale, right? That you forget about really just like enjoying the process of what you're doing. Like, okay, well, I'm just going to focus on this meal that's right in front of me. I'm just going to focus on this workout that's right in front of me. And that's one of the things that fitness has taught me. It's like, we're not, even though the funny thing is that even though you reach an outcome, it is so it's dissatisfying. It doesn't even satisfy you whatsoever. You're like, you're maybe like get that dopamine hit for like 5 seconds. Then afterwards you're like, that's it, But it is really like the process and just like doing the process as well as you can and just like focusing on the next task that's in front of you. That's probably one of the biggest things that fitness has taught me, is just to love that.
Excellent. That does it for our audience cues. I just got 2 more. One super easy, but that is, where can people find you online, which I'll ask you in a second. But what is the biggest barrier so this podcast is called The Break, and it's about that moment of change, right? What is the biggest barrier you see that prevents people from making a change or making their own break?
Their inability to manage their emotions and their reactions to their emotions. That is probably the biggest barrier. So fear is an emotion, anxiety is an emotion, anger is an emotion. And what we have to do is we have to realize that emotions are signals, and they're not necessarily things to fight against. They're not bad. I think like we're living in a time where everyone feels like we should be happy all the time, but no, that's actually the biggest cause of depression, or biggest way to make yourself depressed, is to think that you have to be always happy. And I really do feel that we're living in an age where all of our comforts are taken care of for ourselves, are taken care of right now. We are living in a highly intellectual time at this very moment. Along with living in this highly intellectual time, we now have to evolve into mastering the one thing that is natural to humans, which is emotion. And the more that we can understand our emotions, the more we can allow ourselves to feel it. I'm not going to contrast this with, a lot of like red pill guys are like, don't show people your emotions and don't be emotional and like all this kind of stuff. It's like, come on. Like, this is the next step of evolution, at least from my perspective. The more that we can understand our emotions, allow ourselves to feel them without pushing them down, be honest about them, and also learn how to manage them through things like we talked about, like logging your emotions, logging triggers, getting really objective about them, being really introspective about them, the more that we can master ourselves. So I do believe that's probably the one thing that stops people, is like, hey, if you're procrastinating on getting in shape, what's the emotion behind that? Why is that? What's stopping you? Right? Let's get into that. Let's dig. Let's figure that out. Let's get objective. Let's actually introspect. And I do feel that the more that one can master their emotions, the more they can master themselves, the more they can reach their full potential as well. So I would say the biggest thing is people not being able to manage or control their emotions.
Yeah, I love that. I think when you can introspect, then you can diagnose and do something about the problem. Yeah. But if you can't introspect, you stay on the same path and the same treadmill, and inertia takes.
Lots of people won't introspect. Right. Like,
yeah,
they refuse to, because they don't want to see exactly like what the introspection is going to bring them. Probably because it's going to bring a whole lot of like ownership to like the fact that they're feeling this emotion and all this kind of stuff. But yeah, we must introspect.
Amazing. As Ray Dalio says, pain plus reflection equals progress. So that is a fantastic spot to, I think leave this. Dan, I thank you so much for being here. I really enjoyed this conversation.
Same.
I love the direction and the crossover and everything. Tell people, because you're on LinkedIn and you're on Twitter and you're everywhere.
Yeah.
And I'm such a big fan of your your writing. Tell people where they can find you, and we'll make sure we have links to everything in our show notes and in everything that we put out.
100%. So I get deepest on my YouTube videos. You can find me at Dan Founder. On my newsletter, that's where I go deep as well. You can go to danfounder.com. And for the Twitter, you can find me at FitFounder. On LinkedIn, you can just search my name. On Google, you can search my name. Pretty much you can just find me in all sorts of places just by searching my name. Should be good to go.
Awesome. Go check him out. Go see. I encourage you to see his writings. Like I said, it's simple, it's prescriptive, it's easy to follow. And I hope doing that is a key to making a transformational change, just like Dan did with his life. I think you guys can do that all too. So thanks for listening. Dan, thank you for being here. Really appreciate it. And I can't wait to talk to you again soon and continue to follow all of your progress.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me on. I enjoyed this interview, and we'll be talking to each other on the group and on text and all that kind of stuff. So, yeah.
Awesome.
All right. Thanks, brother.